Hi everyone, this is Van Man, and welcome to my chess rating climb where I play a game of chess every day and track my progress. Let's get right into it. Okay, so we'll start a 15-10 game here. And it looks like we have the white pieces against Manoj 97. Okay, king's pawn. We'll develop the knight here. Okay, so we have a Philidor defense. Against the Philidor, I usually like to strike at the center and play d4 right away, and I'll go ahead and pre-move the take back with the knight. Okay, so this is a bit of an inaccuracy. Okay, so I do know that this is a bit of an inaccuracy when they play bishop g4, because I can take this pawn and incite a queen trade, or if they take the bishop, or can draw arrows, if they take the bishop here, I'll take back with the queen, and essentially their pawns are just a mess. Because now I plan to castle longside and threaten the queen with my rook. So I'm going to develop my knight, next turn I develop my bishop, castle long, and it's just not looking good for black. Okay, so the question is, where do I develop my bishop? I could develop it to d2, or I could pin the knight here. Because I want to castle long, and I can't castle through check, I'm going to develop it to d2, and then I'll castle on the next turn, probably. Okay, so that really only helps me with my plan, because now when I castle, if he takes back with the knight, I take back with the bishop, and that reveals an attack on the queen and wins a tempo. Okay, so let's see now. Okay, here's what I plan on doing. My two candidate moves are either just to develop my other bishop and connect my rooks, but I actually think I have a more powerful move here. Because if I pin the knight with my bishop, he has to move his queen, and really he has to move his queen in a way that continues to defend that knight so that he doesn't lose a pawn, right? So queen e7 is really his only move. If he doesn't want to lose a pawn. But in that case, all I have to do is take the knight, ruin his pawn structure, or if he wants to trade queens, and I'm happy with that too, because either way, he's doubled his f-pawns, in which case I get to attack the f-pawn with my knight and fork his pawn and bishop. So yeah, I think that's the way to go. So I'm going to pin here. He basically has to play queen e7, otherwise he loses a pawn. Oh, actually, you know what? I just realized if he does play queen e7, I don't have to take the knight right away. I can actually fork his queen and knight. That might actually be a better move because that also threatens his bishop as well. He's trying to think of some way out of this, but like he has to move his king. That's the only move right now. He doesn't have any kind of in-between checks or anything like that. Okay. So he chooses just to lose the pawn. Very interesting. I wonder what he's thinking here. Really interesting. Okay, so here's the thing. I think I'm going to take the knight with my bishop, but when he takes back, I'm not going to take with the queen right away. I think it would be a little bit more accurate to move my knight out of the way and threaten his bishop and his pawn. I think that would be a little bit more accurate. That way he doesn't ruin my pawn structure in return. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, I hadn't considered that. Okay, yeah, I hadn't considered that he would take my knight instead of taking back my bishop. But let's think about this for a second. I could throw in an in-between move and take his pawn, but then he just takes my pawn as an in-between move, and I have to take his bishop because I'm in check in that scenario. But here's the deal. If I take his bishop, and he takes my bishop, his c-pawn hangs. And he doesn't really have a way to protect it. And not only that, his b-pawn is weak as well. So yeah, I actually think that's the way to go. Okay, so I'm going to take his bishop with my queen. He has to take back with his pawn to maintain material balance. Then his c-pawn and his b-pawns are both weak. And then after that, I can worry about getting my other bishop into the game. So we'll take here. He's going to take back, obviously. That's really the only move that saves him. Okay. And now, yeah, I don't see any reason not to take the c-pawn. It's not like it's a poison pawn or anything, because if I take that c-pawn, it's not like he can threaten my queen in any way that doesn't also drop his b-pawn. So he could develop his knight to a6, but then I just gobble up his b-pawn and I'm up 3 pawns. Or excuse me, 2 pawns. So yeah, I think gobbling up that c-pawn is worth delaying the development of my light squared bishop. Oh, not to mention, I can't believe I didn't think of this. If he develops his knight to a6, I also just have the option of snapping it off with my bishop anyway, thereby connecting my rooks. So we'll see about that. Okay, not entirely sure about that. In fact, that seems like a pretty huge blunder, because now I can take his b-pawn, temporarily trapping his rook, or threatening to trap his rook, right? So he has to move his knight if he wants to save his rook, but then as soon as he moves his knight, if he moves it to a6, since the b-pawn is no longer there to protect it, I just snap it off with the bishop, and if he moves it to c6, then I pin his knight against his queen. Or if he moves it to, well, actually he can't move it to d7, because that just loses his knight right away because it's attacked by the queen and the rook. So yeah, we're definitely going to take that b-pawn. I'll be honest, I'm not really sure what that king move accomplished. I don't really know what my opponent was thinking there, if we're being completely honest. Yeah, it looks like my opponent's position is kind of collapsing right now. I don't really know what my opponent could even do in this position to get him out of this scenario. Okay. So now I need to calculate the line that I just mentioned by pinning the knight against his queen with my bishop. Because if I pin the knight against the queen, he can't attack my queen. Like, he can't counterattack with the rook, because then I just take his knight with my queen, thereby simultaneously saving my queen and also taking his knight. Okay, so he can't do that. He could add a defender to his knight, right, with his rook, but that again doesn't work, because then I could just add another attacker with my rook. So yeah, I don't see a scenario where he is able to save his piece here. Well, actually, hang on a second. If I play queen here, or excuse me, bishop, if I play bishop b5, he actually can get out of the pin by counterattacking my queen with knight a5. He can do that, in which case it would just be an even exchange. Interesting. Oh, but let's actually calculate this. Okay, let's say I pin his knight. He counterattacks and also alleviates the pin with knight a5. Okay? In that case, I take his queen, he takes my queen, then I repin his knight against his rook, and then after he saves his knight, well, no, that's just an even exchange as well. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I wouldn't mind a big even exchange like that if it plays out like I just described, because I'm already up 2 pawns anyway, so it's clearly winning. I mean, so here's the thing. Bishop b5 is obviously the right move, so I am going to go ahead and play it. But I am actually not entirely sure how I'm going to respond if he decides to counterattack my queen with knight a5. I'll need to decide what I'm going to do after he plays it, if he does play that. Yep. So my prediction was correct. Okay, so now, I could either offer a queen trade just by moving my queen over, right? And creating that battery between the bishop and the queen. But realistically, I'm already up 2 pawns, and his pawn structure is in shambles. Why wouldn't I just simplify? Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to take his queen. He's obviously going to take my queen. Then I'll repin his knight against his rook, forcing yet another trade of pieces. Yep. Okay, so that's to be expected. Okay, so now the question is, do I take his knight and just trade down more material? Or do I go ahead and bring my rook to the 7th rank? Which one is more accurate? I mean, if I bring my rook to the 7th rank, it does x-ray his a-pawn. And he can't save his a-pawn on the next turn because his knight would hang. So that's the question. Okay, if I activate my rook, and he plays knight c5 to threaten my rook. If I activate my rook, bring it to the 7th rank, and he threatens my rook with the knight, then his a-pawn falls. So, which is more accurate? You know what? In the interest of time, I have 6 minutes, he has 13 minutes. I am going to go ahead and simplify, and then I'll just double up my rooks on the d file. Okay? So I'll double up my rooks here. If he doubles up, that's not a problem, because all I have to do is push my b-pawn to stop the threat. Okay, so with threatening my g-pawn, all I have to do is just push my g-pawn to stop the threat. Nice and easy. And now literally all I have to do is just force rook trades down to a winning king and pawn endgame. Yep. And as I predicted, all I gotta do is push the b-pawn. Okay, that's interesting. Well, he's threatening the e-pawn, but my pawn structure is just fine, unlike his, so all I have to do is just use all of my pawns to protect one another, and there's nothing he can do at this point. Okay, he's activating his king. So now, let's see, what can we do here? Let's see, if I threaten his rook, what happens? If I just play a3, his rook, well, if he wants to maintain the battery, his rook can either, well, actually no, he has to maintain the battery. So if I play a3, he has to keep his rook on the b file, because if he moves either to the a file or the c file, his rook hangs, obviously, and if he moves to the d file, it just forces it, or I just trade rooks, which he obviously doesn't want to do. Okay, so if I play a3 and he moves his rook back, I don't think that's really what I want. I think at this point I should just bring my other rook to the d file. And then after that, we'll get the rooks on the 7th rank. So, I mean, this game is kind of going exactly how I wanted it to. I think it was smart of my opponent to activate his king and bring it to the 7th rank, just to prevent me from forcing a rook trade with a fork. But, I don't think it's ultimately going to work out for him. Because now, literally all I have to do is... Okay. So I can threaten his a-pawn with rook a5. If he does that, he probably brings one of his rooks to b7, in which case that prevents me from bringing my rook to the 7th rank. So that's actually probably not the most accurate. I think I just need to bring my rook to the 7th rank and then slowly march my other rook up to the 7th rank as well. That doesn't surprise me. Okay, but here's the thing. That actually just plays right into my hands. Because now all I have to do is stop him from pushing the pawn any further with a4. And on the next move, I'll probably... Let's see. So I need to play rook 1 d5 to threaten his pawn. If he doubles up, which I know that's what he's wanting to do. He's wanting to double up and threaten my c-pawn. But then all I have to do is just push my c-pawn. And then his entire position is just collapsing. Okay. All right, so let's threaten his a-pawn. Oh my gosh. I cannot believe I just fell for that. I actually just cannot believe I just fell for that. That's crazy. Wow. Oh boy. Yeah, my c-pawn was pinned. I cannot believe I just did that. I mean, I think I'm still winning, but I'm going to have to play a lot more precisely now because now my f-pawn is hanging. Okay, so do I take the a-pawn or not? I think the answer is I don't take the a-pawn because I want to keep this pawn structure intact on the queen side. Or excuse me, that's the king side. But anyway, I want to keep my pawn structure intact on the king side. So I think I'm actually just gonna offer a rook trade here. And if he takes, I obviously can't take back with the pawn because it's still pinned. But I'll just take back with the rook. And that's still probably a winning pawn in game. In fact, I'll go ahead and pre-move the take back. But yeah, that's actually really embarrassing that I didn't realize my c-pawn was pinned. And I will have to speed up a little bit because I'm down to 4.5 minutes to his 12. Okay, so now I can just get behind my a-pawn. And then on the next turn, unless he brings his rook to the a-file, I'll probably bring my rook to the a-file. And in that case, there's no way that he can continue to protect his a-pawn. Okay, so here, do I protect this pawn by moving my rook, or do I protect the pawn by pushing my pawn? I think I just push my pawn. Yeah, that stops him from being able to really do much of anything. Oh my gosh. I'm playing so inaccurately. That's crazy. That's crazy how inaccurately I'm playing. I just gave him another pawn. I cannot believe I just did that. Okay, whatever. Well, I obviously have to take. Okay, so where's my king going? Well, I don't think my king can go here because if he goes here to a3 to threaten my a-pawn, I have no way to stop him from taking it. So yeah, I have to go here. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. So, oh gosh, I cannot believe I just did that. That's crazy. Okay, so here's the deal. I think now I have to play rook on the second rank to stop him from forking my king and other pawn. And then I can just march my king over here this way to gobble up his a-pawn and hopefully promote the a-pawn. That's the plan. Oh my gosh. I cannot believe I just blundered this. I just put him into a winning endgame. Okay, I have to go for this. I have to take his a-pawn and hope that I can protect it. That's the only out to victory that I have right now. And I am going to delay my commentary just a little bit because I got to focus here. Okay, take. And my pawn's too fast, I think. Let's see. Take. Boom, 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 boom. I queen first, then he queens. And we just have equal queens. Damn, this is actually drawn. This is drawn right here. Or should I just push my pawn? So like if I push my pawn here, he pushes. Well, he can't push because I'll just take it. So push, take. Then, oh, that's actually a really good insight. So if I just push right now and he takes, he can't continue to push his pawn because because his pawn is pinned to his rook. See, I just pushed my pawn now. Oh, I actually just realized he can take my pawn with his rook, in which case I take his rook, he takes, I push, he pushes, I push, he pushes. So yeah. Oh man, we're both going to promote. Interesting. Okay. So now, So now if I push and he gets behind the pawn, okay, I push, he gets behind the pawn, I go here. No, because I have to guard this. Okay. Yeah, I gotta push and then use my pawn to eat his. Oh man, I cannot believe I did that. Interesting. Let's see, if I protect my pawn with my rook, is my king fast enough to catch this pawn? Let's see. Here, 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 here. No, it's not. Oh my gosh. I cannot believe I threw this game. That's crazy that I threw this game. I was so convincingly winning. And now I'm going to lose because I went from being up 2 pawns to down 2 pawns in the endgame. That is wild. Oh my gosh, I'm so disappointed with myself. I mean, I honestly may as well just resign here. Because there's no way I'm going to be able to stop all 3 of its pieces. All right, you know what? I am going to go ahead and give respect to my opponent and just go ahead and resign. I'm pretty convinced that he would be able to, beat a computer in this position. So, like, this is pretty handily theoretically winning. So we can just give it up here. Okay. So I know pretty much where I messed up, but let's just review anyway. So like right here. Oh, hang on. I need to go to the review scene. Okay. So you see, based on this graph, I was pretty handily ahead the entire time up until this blunder. Yep, right there. Which is when I allowed my B pawn to be taken because my C pawn was pinned. Yep, that was the issue. And then from there, my entire position just completely collapsed. Okay, and then from there, I made another mistake right here, giving him yet another pawn. Oh my word. Cannot believe I did that. Okay, well, let's go back to the beginning. Okay, so we open with the Philidor. Yeah, so I just know from experience from playing the Philidor as many times as I have that this bishop move is a bit of an inaccuracy. Oh, interesting. The computer actually doesn't want me to take here, or just wants me to develop. Okay, so develop the bishop, presumably to protect the pawn. Okay, so if I develop the bishop here, and he develops his knight, would the computer want me to push? Yep. And then we have a more closed position. So I like to take with this pawn just to open up the position, because I tend to prefer open positions rather than closed ones. So I'll have to talk to my coach about what she thinks about taking the pawn instead of continuing to develop. Okay. So then we castle. Okay, yeah. See right here, as soon as he made this queen move, I knew that I was winning. I knew that I was winning because I knew that I would be up at least a pawn, and I knew that I would be able to ruin his pawn structure for the endgame. Interesting. So I wasn't supposed to take his bishop there. Okay. So I guess... Oh, I see that. Wow. That's a very clean tactic. Wow. Very interesting. Okay, so here's the tactic, guys. The tactic was not to take this bishop back right away. The tactic was to threaten checkmate. The tactic was to threaten checkmate. And the only way to get out of checkmate is to push his pawn, thereby saving my bishop. Wow, that is clean. That is real clean. Yeah, I didn't see that in the game. I did not see that in the game. So he can't simultaneously stop checkmate and save his bishop. Wow. So that would have put him straight up down a piece, because the only way for him to stop checkmate is to save my bishop. That is wild. Yeah, I definitely didn't see that. Okay. Yeah, so I can see how that was a miss, just taking back right away with the queen. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I definitely missed that. Okay. So continue on, then I take with pawn. I am still winning here, but not as much as I could have. Yeah, and I knew that as soon as he made that king move, then I was even more winning than I was, because I can just take this b pawn. Okay, then we pin the knight. Then we take, pin, take. Yeah, and then yeah. We honestly, we don't even have to review much of anything else, because I know where my mistake was, right? Like, I was playing very accurately here until I made that one blunder. I would have been able to hold on to a draw in this position, but then stupidly, I went ahead and gave him another pawn, failing to realize that this C pawn, was being attacked twice and defended only once. Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing that I just made... I turned the position from a win into a loss just from making two huge mistakes in a row. Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. Yeah, and then from here, I mean, there's nothing really more to analyze here. Yeah. Okay. Well, lesson learned. Don't get arrogant and play sloppy just because you're in a winning position. Okay. Well, regardless of the sloppy play in the end game, I hope you all enjoyed the first installment of my rating climb, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.